got a Chinese space lab coming down. Nobody knows where it's gonna land. 9 tons almost. Gonna re-enter. It probably is gonna come in April 1st. It's no Fool's Day. But it's pretty interesting because I'm a big fan of watching orbital debris. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest travesties of the space program, as much success as we have. We have a lot of junk up there. And this is a big one. So it's not as big as Skylab and some other things. That's not the point. These things are coming in, and China doesn't know exactly where it's going to go, re-enter, and its inclination is such that it does go over a lot of countries on April 1st if it's the re-entry date. So you're not sure exactly where this thing is coming in. It has the potential, according to experts, to actually survive re-entry parts of it and land on the surface of the Earth. And yeah, the Earth has a lot of oceans, but I've been collecting articles about Michigan. It's going to hit here. Japan. It's going to hit over here. You know, but nobody knows where it's going to hit. So, meanwhile, the Aerospace Corporation, the U.S. And the European Space Agency are really keen on using this re-entry to understand better dynamics of a large spacecraft coming in and the re-entry profile. The bad thing about this one, in a weird way, it has toxic materials on it. It has, you know, if it lands, I don't know where it's going to come out, but you know, if it lands somewhere, you don't want to pick up stuff. There's hydrazine, there's some other stuff that it's got. But anyway, I'm very interested in this because I just don't like the whole attitude about the public of spacecraft go up, they come down, they re-enter, they burn up. They don't burn up. They don't burn up because they also are adding effluents into the Earth's atmosphere. I think this is an issue that I'm really, I'm a loner on. I've been reporting on this for quite a while. But, you know, as more spacecraft go up by more and more countries, we have a pretty big, interesting problem coming. And it's already here, and this is kind of a wake-up call one more time that debris comes in. Keep an eye on India going to the moon. Bart mentioned I'm working on this book on the moon, so I've been mooned for the last year. There's so much going on about the moon. I'm going to go through a few slides and tell you what I think is going to happen. India is going to launch a robotic mooncraft. Not sure where it's going yet. I'm not sure they've ever identified where it's going, but it's going probably in April. This year, it's going to lift off and head to moon. So anyway, but it has a little rover, orbiter craft, kind of cool. China, again, taking a pretty bold step at probably an October, November timeframe this year, launching a far-side lander rover. They're going to go to the far side of the moon, land this thing, and it has a relay satellite that will be put in orbit. That relay satellite's going to go first. It'll be up in a certain orbit around the moon, so it can relay data from this lander on the far side of the moon. China is pretty aggressive on the moon, and again, you're on the other end of a guy that spent pretty much months on the moon without a helmet. So China is going to launch, after this far-side lander, a return sample spacecraft. They were trying to do it this year, or last year, and they had a booster failure. They had a Long March 5, which is a heavy lift rocket that they built to launch this pretty complicated spacecraft to land on the moon, pick up samples, then shoot them back to Earth. Well, the booster failed, so they pushed off the Chang'e 5 is the name of it, and it looks like it's going to go next year. So look for that. It's going to be a pretty interesting mission. I think since the late 70s, we have not had any samples back from the moon. The last really samples from the moon were brought back by some robotic means, but also in December of 1972, the Apollo 17 mission picked up with humans, samples and brought them back to Earth. So this is a robotic thing that the Chinese are going to do. The big story to me, and this is again, you're going to listen to a guy I've been mooned here quite a bit. So the National Space Council has been set up by the Trump administration, and Pence, the vice president, is running this thing. They're making progress. There's some really, from the space agenda, and from a space advocate standpoint, you can't scream too much. It looks like there's about a $20 billion NASA budget. That's one of the biggest budgets they've had in quite a while. And a lot of it is going to be headed to the moon. In fact, this is an actual NASA PowerPoint. And he said, the guy said, about 2 years ago, we had Mars much bigger. Now we have the moon. And this is where the money is driving the whole space agency right now for NASA. It's cislunar space. It's going back to the moon. Haven't been back there. And I can tell you from a lot of scientists I've talked to, the moon has not been there, done that place. We sent 12 people there to walk around, and we still don't know where the damn moon came from. There are still arguments about it. And some people go, there's no argument. There's an argument. We're not sure where the moon came from. Anyway, we're seeing a much more robust indication that this administration, within its 4-year, or, depending on 60 Minutes Tonight, 2-year thing, I don't know how far it's going or whatever. Anyway, Trump administration and the Pence National Space Council is pushing back to go back to the moon. And why are we going back to the moon? To learn how to go to Mars. This space agency, NASA, in my view, would be lucky to survive a Mars mission, to put humans on Mars. They've lost talent. Everybody that's at NASA has gone from the Apollo days. They're old, they're retired, they're dead. We have to regain our lunar legs. And so I think this is a wise step, in my opinion. That's what my knuckle will say. But the big controversy right now, okay, you got $20 billion. NASA, $20 billion. What are you going to spend that on? Okay. NASA's view is they need a gateway. They need a gateway. They need a gateway that's going to be placed in cislunar space. It's the place between the Earth and the Moon. And there's a bunch of orbits that you can put a facility in that can be visited by astronauts to run robots on the moon, to refuel things in cislunar orbit and get them down to the moon, put astronauts in the moon in the future. So they call this the gateway. And it's a controversial, in my view, idea. Lockheed Martin's wrapped up in it big time because their Orion spacecraft that they're building now to carry astronauts wants to link up to whatever the hell this thing's going to be. So NASA's working on it. Boeing's involved. There's a bunch of companies that have all kinds of ideas how to make a kind of a mini space station in the cislunar space that crews can go and visit, link up to at certain times, and run robots on the moon, do solar physics, can do all kinds of cool things. But how much is that going to cost? Is it affordable? The other part of the story is that the International Space Station that's going to go overhead, I've asked NASA to actually fly over at, 8:34?
8:26.
Yeah. And if you look closely, there will be a sign in the window that says, Coal Creek Canyon, Skywatchers, below. Anyway, space station's getting creaky. They just launched a new crew, a 3-person crew. There's 6 people on there right now. And just a few days ago, they linked up, and or a couple days, they launched the crew a couple days ago. They linked up. There's 6 people on there. The space station is kind of still a work in progress in my mind, from scientific to what you do with it, how you work it. It's also getting creaky. I mean, there are moves to kill the station at 2024 because it could be a death trap. It could have some major problems. Things break down, or how much does it cost? It costs NASA billions per year to run the thing, and we have 16 countries involved in the International Space Station. That's why it's called international. But so where do we go? They're going, we're going to build the Deep Space Gateway. Let's all try to put our money together and build the Deep Space Gateway. Well, maybe that makes sense. We'll see. There's other things going on. That's one possibility. They've come up with a really cool orbit. And I can't even pronounce this orbit. I mean, that's how weird. It's some strange orbit I've never heard of before, to put this facility in that loops the moon. So it's always in kind of constant sunlight for the solar panels. You can do a lot of cool things from this way station. And you can lob stuff to the moon, drive robots on the moon. You can have astronauts on the gateway actually running robots on the moon. Sounds pretty interesting to me. We'll see. Okay, coming up, another big space thing to keep an eye on. NASA is launching the InSight Mars lander. It's going to go to Mars. It departs, what do you say, May 5th? Where are we, Barb?
May 5th? Yes.
Vandenberg. It's going to go out of California. It'll be the first interplanetary launch out of Vandenberg Air Force Base in California to go to Mars. Lockheed Martin, local, built this spacecraft. Barb and I have had a really good time actually going to the floor, watching this thing come together. And it's ready to go, and it's at Vandenberg right now, being prepared for the May launch. So it's.
Why are they launching from Vandenberg?
That's a good question, because I'm not sure. I think they can get there in November. The trajectory is such that on the Atlas, they can get there. They can get there in November from a May launch. So it's pretty quick trajectory to get there. And I will tell you one thing I'm worried about. I don't want to get into too much detail, but Vandenberg has never launched anything like this. This is a sterile spacecraft. You don't want to take Mars, Earth biology to Mars. So the clean rooms and a lot of other stuff that has to happen to secure this particular spacecraft is unique to Vandenberg. Pretty interesting. How well they did, we'll find out. I'm worried about my beard hairs around that damn
Because you
thing.
can't even take avocados to California.
What's that?
Glenn, isn't Mars closer than it's been in 15 years this year?
Yeah, we're coming up every 2 years. We get really close. The trajectory is such that. Okay, what?
8:36.
Wait a minute,
Starts
I
at
got-
8:26.
Are you ready?
It's too
When
early.
is it going to start?
No, it's like another half an hour.
No, we're good. It's not happening now. I'll drone on for a bit more and I'll be out of there. 8:26. Okay. The Mars lander is going to have a seismometer on. It's going to be pretty cool. Question?
What makes this robot different from all the other robots we have sitting up there, or is it just like all the other robots?
No, it's a permanent lander. It lands, it doesn't rove. That's the first thing. It's stationary. It has a seismometer on there. And it's the first spacecraft with this seismometer to do to take an internal look at the Mars, the planet Mars, in terms of Mars quakes and understanding more of the geophysics of Mars. So it has, and this thing turned out to be a nightmare building this thing. In fact, this spacecraft got delayed by 2 years because they weren't able to pull it off.
Yeah, it's got a vacuum.
The seismometer did not work as well as they thought. They had to delay for 2 years, and they fixed it. And it's very sensitive, and it's going to do some unique measurements. Now, it has a camera system, and you'll look at the area around it and all that. The key thing to watch for, if you want to find out a gotcha moment, is if this robot arm doesn't work. If a robot arm doesn't work to put that thing on the surface, the mission is really in trouble. And we've seen it operate, so I think it's going to work, but who knows? Anyway, it's another, this is not just a one thing. We've had some great Mars exploration. The Curiosity rover is right on Mars today, doing some incredible roving on Mars. And this morning I saw some new pictures. It's just insane what this thing is doing as a rover. This is a stationary lander. It's just another piece of the science puzzle about Mars. Let's go on here. I watched the new story is going to be is the James Webb Space Telescope, the Beyond Hubble, the Face of God instrument is going to be delayed. It's over budget. It's in trouble. It's going to be in more trouble, according to some people. And I call it the Just Wait Space Telescope. That's probably going to be the story next week. How long of a delay? It's going to launch on an Ariane 5, a European Space Agency rocket. It's supposed to go in 2018. We'll see. Falcon Heavy. I think last time, you did a pretty good review of the Falcon. This was a big story that I missed, not talking to you guys last time, but it's a great story. Elon Musk, how many people have Tesla automobiles here? Okay, you got one. Elon says hi.
Alan Stern.
Great guy, unbelievable entrepreneur, putting a lot of money into his own company. There's Elon looking at the, I think it says on his face exactly what we all, that thing's gonna work. And you have these side boosters that come down and land on land, unbelievable, reusable space technology, where we have to go in the future. And of course, the Tesla is out there.
Remember, this is not the right picture. I showed you the right picture last night.
Okay, I have okay, now, the Tesla, I just checked this morning, it is 8 million miles, 310, over 8 million miles, traveling at about 8,000 miles an hour. But that Tesla has been flung out by the Falcon Heavy. There's a picture of the spacesuited mannequin en route to outward bound. And of course, on the dashboard, don't panic. But it's a great, compelling story. And Elon Musk, if you're a Mars enthusiast, I am, he's promised something pretty big to start flying next year, which is the BFR. Depending on how you feel about life, it's the big Falcon rocket. He's got a bigger plan, and he's claiming that next year he's going to start flying tests of the components of this vehicle. So keep an eye on Elon Musk. He's a tremendous entrepreneur. We'll see if it all comes together, but so far what he's promised, even though it's been delayed and kind of, well, we didn't make that year, he's done some incredible things. I think that's pretty much it. I keep an eye on the moon and Mars. I think we got something going. The moon is really going to be interesting. The scientific you know, the momentum in the scientific community is huge. They want to go back to the moon, and for a lot of reasons. And in the long term, you look at the moon's going to look different. I'm not going to see it, but the moon is going to be a much different place than we ever thought it was going to be. For the poets in the audience, you're going to be mad. Because the moon is going to be a mining operation. It's going to be a much different place. We're going to see lights on the moon. We're going to see something that we've never seen before. There's going to be a lot of debate about capitalism and profit motive and who gets there and does what, and helium-3 and mining the moon for different properties. And it's a pretty cool story. And it's still to play out, but it's a great, entertaining story. What do you want? You're gonna give me trouble.
Do you want me to talk about Scott Kelly?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes,
He
yes.
had a thing, I forgot.
Do you wanna come
He
up?
had a great new item about Scott Kelly,
Yeah.
who flew for a year in space
Yeah,
on the
come on up.
International Space
Come
Station.
on up.
I'll try to make a coherent discussion here,
Go.
speaking extemporaneously,
There.
right? Just like
Go.
Hunter does.
Yeah, like I did.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, about 2 years ago, Scott Kelly went up and stayed almost a year in the space station, right? Okay, and they wanted to examine his response, physiological response to being up there for so long, because he has a twin brother, and so they have the same DNA.
And what age is he?
I think
Are they
he's seen as
60 or
55 or so.
Okay.
Roughly, they are. Well, there was a story on the news about 2 weeks ago that said Scott Kelly's DNA changed by 7%.
What?
Well, you know, there's a lot of fake news these days. This is an example of fake news. So, they say that there's only about 1% difference in the DNA between the chimps and us. So what does that make Scott Kelly if his DNA changed by 7%? Yeah, a whale? I don't know. So it turns out there's something where that did change by 7%. It wasn't his DNA, but you know, the DNA expresses into genes, and then that makes all kinds of proteins, and that totally makes us what we are. His gene expression changed by 7%. And that's what they didn't tell you. But, you know, your gene expression could change. Let's say you start an exercise program, or change your diet, or you get sick, or you get well from being sick. So what I like to know is, when did they check his DNA for this 7% change in expression? Was it right after he got back, or was it just now, like a few weeks ago? I have a feeling if they checked it again, it would be more closely the same as it used to be, or to his brother. And, you know, you can just think about it. He was floating around, not getting much exercise. Well, certain, you know, let's say, like I said, you start an exercise program, certain genes that build muscles are upregulated. All of a sudden that gene wasn't doing too much, and it's making new muscle, or making new red blood cells. You know, all that kind of stuff.
To compensate for the microgravity.
Yeah, or maybe he was making less red blood cells because he wasn't exercising. Who knows?
Okay.
So yeah, or you're making less muscle. So anyway, if you see any stories about that on the internet,
Or
that's-
TV.
or TV, yeah, it was on 9 News, and I called them up and told them that. It
The
was
point, the
fake
bottom
news.
line is, I mean, why would I want to do those kind of experiments? And it won't be just these two guys,
Oh yeah.
the other people. It's whether or not, you know, microgravity and space travel on long distances is going to produce mongoloids on Mars, or what, you know, what is the bottom line?
Right. Well, they have.
Yeah.
If they're going to be in, you know, drifting in 0G for 6 months, will they be able to? Who's going to be there?
Yeah.
Nobody to help them get out of the spacecraft.
Yeah.
When you're back to about 0.38 G, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, yeah, they want to know that stuff. But it was just like somehow the news just got mutated. Anyway,
Oh, how's that?
that's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. All right.
And we are, the last 3
Okay,
weeks,
we're
I
gonna-
guess John's been
Got some
trying to
time.
video these. He hasn't had time to kind of put them together and post them, right? No, well, he's got a full-time
He's got a job.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's what my wife says. You know, why don't you just retire? We'll like have to move out of our house,
Under a
move in with our
bridge,
kids.
I've heard that story.
So I wanted to mention. So at 8:26 we'll go outside.
Yeah, we'll watch that.
So-
And it is clearing a little bit,
Okay.
John.
It's going to come from
You
the
have little faith.
southwest
but
between.
They
Are you
just
guys-
can't predict this weather here.
I know. It's like I don't think I can count on one hand like the clear nights we've had in the past 3 years.
Yeah, but, who
You
was
need
it who
more
brought, somebody brought their telescope? I was talking to them earlier.
It's
Besides our spotting scope.
Yeah, the spotting school.
Did they leave? Who was, yeah, I'm trying to think.
Well, I wanted to
Somebody
mention.
else brought.
Are you guys familiar with the constellation Orion?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Are you familiar with the constellation Canis Major? That's serious. So the space station is going to come up and come right between the two of them. So
Right,
it should,
and so-
and it's going to be super bright.
So when we go out, it's sort of southwest,
No
right?
problem too much.
Over this way?
I wonder if we shouldn't go out on the deck and try, because then we'll be able to see more clearly. But in the front, we'll be able to see it when it's up.
Yeah, okay.
So
We'll figure it, we'll have
it
monitors.
should be easy to spot and it'll be bright, so we'll be able to point it out real quick. So I tried to
And
do,
Leonard.
yes, ma'am,
You're not my husband.
not yet.
Sometimes we feel like that. We were supposed to be together in Skywatchers. It looks like it's 5 minutes, so that's plenty of time. We could even go out here and then go over if we had to.
30-ish.
8:30-ish,
Well,
yeah.
what-
We should go out.
Everybody's got to get their coats, their shoes on, wake up, you know, shake their cobwebs out. I'm that boring. No. So I tried to do Leonard justice last month with the everything. I don't know. I don't know if he did it or not.
He would, because Leonard couldn't be here last
I
month.
know.
Yeah, he did
But
great job.
so we're gonna dive into astronomy news. I keep thinking, oh, astronomy, not much going on. You know, there's so much more going on in what's called space science. That's manned space flight, the
If women, men and.
sorry,
Yeah.
humankind
I know
space
you-
flight, and also the space probes to Jupiter, Juno, and stuff like that. But in the realm of the other stuff, and this doesn't even qualify, but this thing is Humanity Star, and I wrote about it in the Mountain Messenger last month because you were supposed to be able to see it, maybe. This guy, this is the inventor, or the rich guy who sent it up in space
From New
It's-
Zealand.
from New Zealand. Yeah, so
He looks like it.
and so it's not very big, and it's got all these sides. They're very reflective, and it was supposed to be a beacon for our exploration of space. A lot of astronomers disagreed. There's all this controversy. This thing was supposed to be up in space. It was supposed to be very bright, but it turns out that it wasn't going to be very bright. And like we would have been able to see it one day here in Coal Creek Canyon. Where it was like a magnitude 4, magnitude 6 is like the dimmest thing we can see with our eyes. So you barely see it zipping across the sky. Well, the thing re-entered on Wednesday. It was supposed to last till, I don't know, 6 or 8 months from now, but it's hollow. And apparently they didn't take that into account when they kind of predicted its orbit, because since it was hollow, it's lighter, there's a lot more drag on it, and it just came in early. So no more Humanity Star in orbit.
Do you know
So,
where it landed? Was
well, it just burned
somewhere
out.
in the ocean? Oh, it burned out the
oh
next.
yeah, it's a little piece of tinfoil. So
Yeah.
Did anyone see it?
I didn't see it the night that it was
Read
up.
about any reports of
Yeah,
anyone seeing
it
it?
flashed up to about second magnitude.
Only second?
Yeah,
They said it was supposed to be like -4, but it was never going to make it. Yeah, it was a big kind of PR thing. And here I am promoting it, but only because it was ridiculous. Move it out. So New Horizons. is going to meet this object called 2014 MU 69. It's a Kuiper Belt object. This week, Alan Stern, in his infinite wisdom of PR, because this guy is a PR machine. Honest, Alan Stern. He came here and talked. Very nice guy, incredibly knowledgeable, and he's thinking about the public and how he can get his next mission off the ground. And it's a good thing because we need these things. But they decided to call it Ultima. This is a nickname. It's not the official name. Ultima Thule, which means beyond Thule, beyond the borders of the known world. You know, beyond this, there will be dragons. It's, you know, so look for this. This encounter is next year, I think.
Is that an image of,
This is an artist
It's an
rendition
artist.
of Here's New Horizons, and
Right.
I don't think it'll be this close to the object, but us artists, we like to take, you know, some liberties. One of the interesting things that came out in my, you know, I get these email alerts, these alerts of all these papers that come out, and about 70,000 years ago, the Earth was, and this was like men and women, ancient men and women were around to see this. A star called Schultz star, a little red dwarf with a brown dwarf companion, it passed within a light year of Earth. Easily visible in the sky. A new star. I mean, and it was close enough to interact with the Earth cloud. So it passed through, you know, this is 50,000 AU astronomical units, the distance between the Earth and the Moon. I'm sorry, the Earth and the Sun. Like, huge mistake. So, I mean, it's not quite, it's way outside the orbit of Pluto still, but apparently it perturbed the orbits of some of the comets and asteroids, or comets mostly out there. And so, hopefully, it didn't nudge something to come impact Earth later, but we'll see. Right now, this star is 20 light years away, so toward the constellation of Montceros, hardly visible. I mean, it's a very dim object anyway, because it's a little red dwarf, but interesting nonetheless that that this thing came in. The biggest news this month is Stephen Hawking is passing. Are you guys familiar with Stephen Hawking? Stephen Hawking's, of course you are, but he was, when he was 21 years old, he was told he had 2 months to live. He unfortunately had ALS. He's up in the Vomit Comet. Oh, NASA hates that name, I'm sorry. It's the hyperbolic Vomit Comet, yeah. But look.
but yeah, explain what it does, that to create,
So it-
like micros.
Yeah, they use a 737,
20.
a plane. And it goes up in a hyperbolic orbit. When it gets up to the top and starts coming down, you become weightless. And it goes through a series of these things. Lots of puke bags around. Because, you know, and people have fun. They throw stuff. I think it's hilarious. These guys got a hold of Stephen Hawking. He's got him by his, and the apple's floating free. You know, they're not even worried about getting beamed by it. But everything's weightless, and this is how they send up teachers. I haven't gotten to, they haven't never approved mine.
Yeah, they didn't approve mine.
Maybe we should try again. But anyway, Stephen Hawking was really important, and he is actually working on a paper that when he died, it's going to come out, and it's talking about the beginning and the end of the universe as we know it. He is a proponent of, and probably rightly so, of the Big Bang Theory, and so this expansionary model of the universe. I think one of the most hilarious stories that I had never heard was that, so Stephen Hawking's big claim to fame is black holes research. Hawking radiation, that's the leaking of radiation as a black hole ages. It leaks this stuff that he predicted. They've encountered it. So he had a bet with Kip Thorne. Kip Thorne's a scientist, a really smart guy out of JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab, Caltech. And they had a bet. The closest thing to a black hole that we could think of at the time in the 90s was Cygnus X1. This is a bright X-ray source in the constellation Cygnus. It turns out it's related to a supernova remnant, and he goes, if Cygnus X1 turns out to be a black hole, to the best of our knowledge, then I'll give you a magazine subscription, whatever you want, to Kip Thorne. Kip Thorne says, fine, I'll do that too. So Stephen Hawking chose Popular Mechanics, as most scientists would. Kip Thorne wanted a subscription to Penthouse, and in the 90s when they declared Cygnus X1 a black hole, Stephen Hawking paid up. I thought it was going to. So he's going to be missed, I'm sure, by a lot of people. This is his last paper. It's called A Smooth Exit from Internal Inflation and External Inflation. I can't read anymore. Eternal
Well, one
inflation.
thing before you keep going,
Sorry?
before you go too far, John, one very interesting thing about his calculation is that theoretically, a black hole could disappear. It isn't always, it isn't a complete accretion source. It is theoretical possible for it, instead of just being always accreting stuff, it could eject enough of this radiation that he just mentioned that it could
Basically
in
evaporate.
infinity, and it could take long, but it could, one of them could disappear. I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, he thought his most famous book, obviously, is A Brief History of Time. He never thought it was going to amount to anything. It became a bestseller, and you've all got it on your bookshelves, right? Have you read it? Just checking.
Did I understand it?
That's all right. You should read Elegant Universe by Brian Greene if you want something to blow your mind. It was a good book, but man. So this thing, this oblong rock that I've got shown here is, what is it called again? Oumuamua. So it was discovered by Pan-STARRS, which is a telescope on Mauna Loa in Hawaii. Haleakala, you're right. I'm sorry. Haleakala. This is one of those other ones. I should know this because we're building a big telescope.
And this is artist.
This is an artist. Yeah, we didn't. Our pictures of it are pretty meh. This thing came from an interstellar source. It was on a hyperbolic orbit. And what amazes me after I keep looking at this thing, and of course, if Bob Grimm were here, he would be like, Rama? From Arthur C. Clarke's book. This thing came from elsewhere and missed the Earth by just 20 million miles. And then it's going to reach the orbit of Jupiter like in August. It's moving. And it's not going to stick around. It's going to go out, escape. It's an escape velocity of the sun's gravity. And so, what I keep looking at today, they're going to keep discovering little things about this, and I'm going to keep bringing them up because I think this is the coolest story in the decade. But apparently, they did some research. Some scientists did some research where this thing kind of blows our mind in terms of what we expect from elsewhere, from interstellar space. We thought that it was a comet at first, but it turns out it's more like an asteroid. Heavier body, it's not so watery, icy. It's mostly rock or metal or something. And they were looking at, what kind of objects would get ejected from a solar system whenever this guy happened, right? And so they decided that they did some modeling, and it turns out that objects like this get ejected from binary star systems more often than a normal watery icy body. So they maintain in their paper that Oumuamua comes from a binary star, which is not that crazy because most stars in the sky are binary stars, it's double star systems. So yeah, I made a joke earlier to my wife that this is all that's left of Tatooine after it got obliterated by the
The cool thing
In Star
about
Wars.
that,
Oh,
the
okay.
cool thing about that is that, for the first time, a serious scientist actually thought, if this is a spaceship, is that object some possible interstellar traveler? And they tried to communicate with it. They actually sent signals to it.
They've still been
tried
listening
to see if it hailed frequencies, whatever. And found out some unique things, but I mean, it was the first time in my mind that we actually took seriously an object that was so odd that we thought it was a spaceship from another, another civilization. And that was, I think a marker in history, even though it didn't maybe pan out, but that kind of gave me a sense of, wow, there's something else going on here, and was a good signal, and we kind of got a different kind of signal out of that research.
It's gonna be fascinating. They're gonna continue finding stuff out about it.
You're gonna try to do this space station thing.
I just checked, it's kind of cloudy.
It's kind of cloudy.
Well, it's fairly bright as it's been.
What do you want to do?
I wanna go on from 8:20 right now.
Yeah.
Let's,
No,
Is
it's
it
eight.
tumbling, you go over and as it flies?
right, I think I did a animation of it the last time. It is tumbling, but it's this long,
So what's so unusual about it? I mean, just what's so fascinating about this,
Very strange.
this object? I mean, other than the interstellar turd, what exactly?
well, it's the, I guarantee it's not the first interstellar turd that's come through the solar system. But but it's the first time we noticed one. And so that by itself is pretty fascinating because we've heard of maybe planets getting ejected, but the chances of this little thing kind of blowing through is fascinating itself. So what they're trying to do is figure out what's it made of, because they really would like to know how the solar system formed, but also, are we unique? And I'm talking the formation of our solar system. Or is it that these objects are just like any other object in our solar system? It turns out that this thing is a little different. And so the chemistry in that solar system is a little different, where we don't know where it came from. We don't know we know what direction it's going off to, but other than that, and also the shape of it, this long shape, is kind of unusual. Usually the body's big. This one's not so big, it's only 400 meters long. But they tend to be more round and rougher. This thing is very smoothish, and this kind of elongated look. How's it look out there? What do you think?
I think it's worth going out there to check, but, we've probably got a couple more minutes.
All right, let me get through a couple more slides. Because Juno at Jupiter is so impressive. This is the polar cyclone. The North and South Pole have this crazy big cyclone here, and then these 8 other little cyclones around. It just goes to tell us that we don't know anything about the weather in the solar system, and this is like nothing we've seen on Earth. So
You said this is Jupiter?
this is Jupiter in infrared. Sorry, it's
I'm
not
not used to the color.
the
Usually
color.
when we're looking at Jupiter, it looks very different. That's
It
why.
does. You're
Looks
right.
more like the sun.
It looks more like that.
More exactly.
And so, but this is in infrared, and so Juno's cameras aren't in the nice color range that we like to see. They have cameras that see heat. That's what infrared is all about. And so, yeah, completely different weather than we've ever seen anywhere else in the solar system, right there. So we'll continue to watch that. The Great Red Spot is shrinking and has been shrinking for 100 years or so. I mean, it was bigger in the past, it's been getting smaller, but it's growing in height. So another weird thing, we don't understand. Again, we don't understand these processes. This is why we explore it. This is the cool part of science, right? Let's wander outside, and we can do this in a minute.
So are we going out this way?
I don't know.
Or should we go out here?
Sorry, folks.
At that point, it was about where they said the moon was.
I've been to a space shuttle where it got scrubbed. So this was not nearly as much of a pain.
No, if you're transversing, going far.
There was much expense.
Just saving it
Well, I was
for
going to
parents,
Florida
like,
at the time, it wasn't too bad to
Way
go down there.
right.
Still, to spend a couple hours driving and getting onto the place, and
You know,
doing all the parking, all the stuff, you
Oh,
get out and, oh, we're gonna drive it.
Then you just.
Everybody get back in the cars, drive out.
So the cool thing about this is that I spent some time and I list out all the ISS passes that last more than a minute or so. And then the iridium flares. And these are local to us. If you go down to Denver, the geometry changes enough for the iridium flares. The space station, that doesn't change.
Actually, what's the specific location for the flares?
Right here.
Okay.
So even like at your house. it might
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
Yeah, if you're, next sir. So the marches is still up on the website. I did the April's this morning. I still need to upload it, so I will get to it. So the space station does come over. There are times when it moves to the morning. Then about a month it'll not be shown in the sky at all. And then there'll be little clusters of it. So kind of cool.
And then in June, there's the marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In April, there's hardly anything going on. I don't know what it is about April, but it's kind of wild. Tax season. Darn it. They stopped those things? I figured it had something to do with spring or something. Do you know that guy? Frank Drake?
Ah, the Drake equipment.
That is the Drake equation. Don't ask me to explain it though. I mean, I can explain parts of it, but gosh.
It's just a list of unknowns.
The
So
odds
it
of
is a
this,
list of
times the
unknowns.
odds of this, times the odds of this.
Yeah.
The odds of this.
Basically, yeah, nobody's out there. So, I just had to throw this in here. This guy here is Frank Drake. This, I don't know, one of the United States' most well-known scientists or astronomers. He came up with this thing in the back called the Drake equation. Basically, boils down to what's the probability that there's intelligent life in the universe that is spacefaring. So like how many stars are in the galaxy. I was like, don't ask me to explain it, but this number is the number, and it's usually close to 0. Well, it turns out if we hear signals from aliens ever, just by chance, and Oumuamua might have been a signal that we just missed, that chances are they're gone. They've gone extinct, or I don't know. It was so long ago that it doesn't matter anymore. But this was a paper that came out that I thought was interesting, and I thought I'd mention it. If you ever have a chance to see this guy, Frank Drake, in a YouTube video, he's still kicking around. He's like 80-some, and he's still doing science. He has the most fascinating ideas. Just crazy stuff. And he's very knowledgeable. He's very interesting to listen to. So, one of the interesting things lately, we've had these we've detected these gravity waves, or gravity waves. But this is something different, but it's sort of on that cutting edge of unknown weirdness. We thought maybe we don't, anyway. 33 of these events, these fast radio bursts, these are really bright radio signals that we're getting from galaxies. We've seen 33 of them since they were detected just a few years ago. The brightest was found this month from a galaxy 3 million light years away.
That's a
And
radio brightness?
and scientists have no idea what they are.
Is it
But
from this
these,
very large array, is that what's picking them up?
actually, most of these are picked up by a big radio telescope down in Australia, not part of the VLA.
Well, the really big telescope.
Well, that isn't the square. Yeah, this one's, I can't remember the name of it.
The RBT?
there's the square kilometer array, but it's not online yet down in Australia. But some other scientists theorize that possibly these fast radio bursts come from alien space travel. So they did these calculations. Nobody believes that this is the case, but they did do some calculations, and if there was a planet-wide, we've played with our light sails. We send them up and we use the sun to propel them out into space. They suggest that perhaps there's planet-wide laser systems that are blasting toward this huge light sail, and that's what we're seeing. And the radio burst is, at that distance could be enough that we would see it as these what are called fast radio bursts. Now, these fast radio bursts last like in the 1 millisecond range, so they're very, very, very short. A million of them just happened while I was breathing there. So, more and more stuff is going on in the areas of extrasolar planets. This is an image from Hubble on an object that we've looked at quite a bit, HR 4796A. I don't know where that name comes from, but they've clearly seen this debris ring around this. This is really a very new star. We theorize that the solar system was formed in a ring, and the planets accreted out of that. And the sun, and as the sun became brighter, it sort of blew out all the extra dust and gas and ice, and so that's how the solar system formed. Of course, Kepler has shown us that a lot of these ideas about how the solar system formed that we think are kind of messy. We thought before all solar systems, a sun is in the middle, then there's some rocky planets like Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, and then there's maybe some gas giants, and then these ice giants like Neptune and Uranus, and then all the Kuiper Belt objects, the Earth Belt objects, the cometary stuff that surrounds it. And yet Kepler finds these planets where there are super Earths or super Jupiters that are orbiting their sun in 9 hours or a day. I mean, so we have nothing like this in our solar system, completely alien. But this new image from Hubble shows some structure that we had not seen before, bow shocks, this truncation, so that as this star is moving through whatever interstellar medium it's going through, there must be some gas that's becoming compressed to form this bow shock. Just like a boat going through the water, the sun of this star is plowing through this medium, so that's kind of cool.
Is that black spot in a occulting disk, or is that?
Well, yeah, this is the occulting disk. This is the location of the star, so they can see that ring. And then this one has it's a binary system, has a companion that they had to occult out as well, and its location is right there. So they had to do a lot of processing with the Hubble to get it to find this really fine structure in it. So kind of cool. Oh, I love this too. This is a galaxy paint in the background image here.
This is a picture that's in the drawing.
This is a picture. Highly processed, but this is an artist's drawing of what this star system might look like. Has this disk around it and the bright star in the center. Speaking of disks that we don't know much about, there's this star called Tabby Star. Now, this is one of the Kepler objects, and it dims in an odd way. So the way they find planets moving across these disks are, as the planet moves, just like if you moved your finger across a light bulb, the light drops down. I mean, precipitously, and then after a certain time, after the planet moves beyond it, the light level comes back up. This thing is all over the place. And they don't know if again, we don't know much about how the solar system formed, apparently. So this solar system may be asteroidal debris, cometary dust that's blocking this. And it's like this, it's very thick, but very uneven. It might be like that. One of the wild propositions is that it's really an alien megastructure that is in orbit around it. And this is an idea from Freeman Dyson, who said that, you know, an alien race, or even us, maybe one day, we're going to want to use all the energy from our sun. And so eventually we might build a ring to increase the land area of the habitable zone of our solar system by building a ring out at 93 million miles at 1 AU. And then eventually these will become bigger, and then maybe form a sphere that just encapsulates the star, capturing every amount of bit of energy that comes off of it. It's called a Dyson sphere. And so astronomers are so interested in what's going on here, is that they send out alerts when things look like they're dipping. Well, this week, unexpectedly, the alert went out for all these, and a lot of astronomers and observatories turn their attention toward Tabby Star, so we get all the observations we can, because it's just an odd problem that doesn't really explain by some basic stuff. Anyway, again, science, and a lot of citizen scientists are in on this as well, so it's kind of cool to watch. I just thought I'd mention it. Again, I said there's so much news about exoplanets. 15 planets have been confirmed nearby around cool dwarf stars, including at least one super-Earth. Now, super-Earths they're usually about 1.2 side, you know, the radius of Earth to maybe 2 times the size of Earth, that are in an area around their star where liquid water can be present. So they may be water worlds, they may be water vapor worlds, but water is close to the liquid point. That's what a super-Earth is. They look at these cool dwarf stars because they're easier on the eyes to look at. They're not so bright. They tend to be older, and so maybe there's maybe no life on them anymore, but at least they can, you know, get a good idea of what these systems look like or seem like. That's kind of cool. Just a Kepler update, since we're talking about these things. Kepler, a couple years ago, these satellites turn in orbit with these reaction wheels. Just like when you take a bicycle wheel and spin it and you sit on the like a rotating chair, you can actually turn it like this. Well, there are big reaction wheels on this satellite to turn it. Just Hubble has the same thing. Satellites in Earth orbit, satellites that look at, you know, high resolution imaging satellites do this as well. So you don't have to use a lot of fuel to maneuver your spacecraft. A couple of years ago, these reaction wheels went out on Hubble, or not on Hubble, on Kepler. Kepler has found 3,700, or there's 3,700 exoplanets so far that have been found, 2649 by Kepler. Kepler has totally expanded our knowledge of what planets around other star systems might be like. Unfortunately, because the reaction wheels went out, they used their engineering minds and they said, well, we've got fuel, so we can use the hydrazine on board to maneuver this satellite however we need to. The fuel runs out next month. So Kepler is going to die. It won't be able to be pointed. But we've got James Webb coming on board. Maybe. It's over budget. And but we have the European Space Agency's got us something called Ariel that they're going to launch later this year, and then next year is another European Space Agency mission to look for exoplanets. So the search will continue. It's just that Kepler is going to be out of the game here soon, unfortunately. Another star system found with 3 super-Earths. But look at they rotate, or they revolve around their star in 6.2 days. So the star is, okay, remember these are liquid water on these planets, but the star is so dim that they have to be really close to it. You can imagine what that might look like. It would be an alien craziness, you know. I would love to be in this area because there's so much thought going on in it. So anyway, in an odd paper that came out, they've discovered that there's a